I want to talk about my untraditional journey into becoming a software engineer. I know these videos always get some controversy because some people say that you cannot call yourself a software engineer if you do not have a computer science degree or if you don't have an engineering certification. And I know that legally in some countries that's true, but here in the United States, or at least where I've lived in the United States, you do not need to have that degree or anything like that to be a software engineer. And I've held that title at multiple companies. So I first want to tell my story, and then I want to dive into my advice for other people who are potentially seeking their first software engineering job, or they are also coming from an untraditional background where they're maybe going through boot camp or self-teaching themselves to code. Also, some background as to where I'm at now. I am a senior developer advocate at Amazon Web Services, and I'm about 6 to 7 years into my software engineering career. So I started coding in college. I had to take an extra math credit or class that fit into the mathematical umbrella, and the only one that fit into my schedule was a computer science class. And I'd heard some other people say that it's a good thing to pick up and that it would be something that I should at least try and see if I liked. And so I signed up for it. I thought, honestly, that computer science would be like learning how to format Microsoft Word documents and use Excel or something along those lines. I had no idea what coding was. I had no idea what I was going to learn in this class. But I walked into that classroom on the first day and they handed us a sheet of paper with Python code on it. And they asked us to take that code and type it into our computers and make it run. And I was completely blown away. I was mind blown. What is this? You can just type into the computer and press run, and what is happening? This is so wild. But over the course of that semester, I learned the programming fundamentals. I learned object-oriented programming, and they were really into having us build games. So I built a tic-tac-toe game, different card game simulators, and a Flappy Bird game as my final project. I fell in love with it. I thought it was the most fun thing ever. And I ended up signing up to double major in computer science. I did pretty well in the class, and they actually asked me to come back and TA the class or assistant teach it the next semester. So the next semester, I signed up for a C++ data structures and algorithms class, thinking that it was going to be really similar to the Python class that I had taken. And it turned out to be what some colleges call a weed out class, where they purposely make it really difficult so that some people drop out of computer science, especially if the department is overwhelmed or they just want a very small number of people to actually go on and major in that topic. The topic was actually really difficult as well. Data structures and algorithms are a huge step up from the fundamentals, and we were doing it in C++, so that meant we had to use things like pointers and references and manual memory management and all the things that come along with a slightly lower level programming language than something like Python. The assignments were really difficult as well. We were asked to create a Sudoku solver and recreate the Huffman encoding problem and all these other really difficult things. I remember pulling all-nighters, working so hard on these different challenges and working much harder than I had ever had to work in a class before. And at the end of that semester, I decided that programming just wasn't for me. Most of the people in the class had taken coding classes in high school and had prior experiences before college, and so I felt like a total newbie coming in and trying to take this class with a bunch of people with more experience than me. I felt like I didn't really fit in super well. I didn't know a lot of people taking computer science classes, and so I ended up coming away from the semester with a B+, which looking back on it, I'm like, that's not a bad grade by any means, but at that time in my life, I was like, I worked way too hard to get a B+ in that class. This must mean that I'm awful at programming and it's just not for me. Coding is something that I'm a little bit too late in my life to adopt, which is so funny because I was 19. But I thought that you had to be coding your whole life or whatever in order to do it as a career, that you had to have a computer science degree to get a job in software development. And I didn't really understand how this was something that companies actually used, because a lot of the problems were really abstract. So again, I quit coding. I went back to my original major and just single majoring in that, which was political science, so something completely unrelated to code. But then during my junior year of college, I had an internship doing data analysis for a company. I was doing a lot of like Excel work and typing into spreadsheets and manipulating data, formatting it, and all of that. And I realized that I could use Python and Excel macros to pretty much do most of my job for me. And so I ended up using programming to make my life a lot easier and like really excel at my job. At that company, I was an unpaid intern, and I said that I would only stay if they paid me, which they could not do. That summer, they recommended me for another company. I just cold outreached to them. I wrote them an email like, my interests align with what you do, and I have taken stats classes and some computer science in college, and I'm really interested in what you do. Do you have any internships? And they asked me to come in the next day for an interview, and they offered me the job on the spot, and I became a software engineering intern. They offered me a full-time position. So I actually started off as a professional software engineer, not an intern, coming out of my junior year of college. So I went back to school for one more semester. I was working full-time and going to school full-time. And I also had a part-time job actually interning at the local middle school, assisting teachers in their math department. So I was very busy that last semester of college. But after that, I ended up writing my thesis off campus. So I did graduate, but I was instead during the day working full-time as a software engineer. So a very untraditional path into coding. And for the first while in my job, I just wrote Python. So I did Python scripts automating tasks that they had and making their data science workflows a little bit better and updating and adding to their data science workflows. But they also had some web applications at that point written in Ruby on Rails, so I started teaching myself that. From there, we started making some applications in Django as well, which is what I really specialized in early in my career. I spent pretty much all my time writing Django code with HTML, CSS, and jQuery on the front end. What a throwback. But from there, they had more front end work that they needed to get done as well. So I had to learn React and Vue to do that as well. And AngularJS, which is another throwback. I definitely don't miss that at all. I get to learn so much on the job, but I also had to learn so much off the job as well. I think it's really important for most people to have work-life balance, but I was really early career and was able to put a lot of time in outside of work to explore more. And early on, I tried to learn everything. I had no scope to my learning. I wish I could go back and maybe focus on just a couple things instead of leaning really hard into the shiny object syndrome. Everything is awesome, I need to learn everything type mode. Those first couple years, I never thought that I was going to stay in software engineering. I thought it was just going to be a temporary thing that I did for a little bit and then moved on. But I had some mentors at work and leadership, and they were super supportive and really nice about my skills, and they really encouraged me to keep doing this, which I did. And they let me mentor new people coming in and interview people, and they allowed me to be the team lead on a lot of projects really early on in my career. And without their support, I definitely would not still be in the industry. I also want to acknowledge that there's a lot of privilege in my story too. I did go to college. I went to a pretty good college at that. I had a lot of people believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. And so I do want to acknowledge that those things play a role into my success and ability to land a job without a computer science degree. So that's a little bit about how I got started and my transition into this. It's a lot more difficult now for people entering the field. I got really lucky and had a series of really lucky events that allowed me to get my first job in tech. But I know now there's so many more people looking for entry-level software development jobs that it's a lot more difficult to do that, and people usually don't have the same sort of luck that I did. To be honest, this was almost a different era in software development. At this point, boot camps weren't really around yet, and so they have brought so many more people into the industry, but there are also so many more people looking for their first job now. And I think that there's more on social media and different developer communities where people can really learn how to code using all these free platforms out there. I think that's so great, but it definitely makes getting your first job a little bit more difficult. So I do have a video on both my career advice for programmers and my 10 things that I wish that I knew when I started to learn code. I will link those and put like cards or whatever up as well. But I just want to be encouraging to people who are from backgrounds where they do not have a computer science degree as well. You can do this. You are perfectly valid, and the different backgrounds that people come into this industry make it a better industry and make it so that all these experiences come together to make better products and a better industry as a whole. I would say to try to specialize in something, especially early on, so that you have something that makes you stand out, especially if that's something that your boot camp or a lot of self-teaching people don't focus on. I would also say to not undervalue your non-technical experience in interviews. Make sure that you talk about the people skills that you have built up and the other experiences that you had before transitioning into the industry. I would also say to put effort into your applications. Again, I got my job through just emailing somebody saying that I thought that I was a good fit for X and Y reasons. And I think those personalized outreaches really do go a long way. And so if you can tailor your materials for certain positions that you're interested in, I think that goes a long way as well as having a portfolio of your different projects that you've built, and blogging about what you're learning goes a huge way as well. So thanks for watching this video. That's a little bit about my story. There are so many other awesome stories like this out there. I will link some of them in the description. But if you like this video, please throw a thumbs up on it and I'll know to make more videos like this in the future. Subscribe to the channel so you can see my next video. I'll see you next week.